This isn't going to be my normal retirement type video. I wanted to make something different today to celebrate or memorialize tomorrow. I think that, talking about this is going to be something that is important for young and old alike. So for almost all Americans, most Americans anyway, Memorial Day is the start of summer. You know, barbecues, family get-togethers, enjoyment, a long weekend, your big 3-day weekend. It is truly an American holiday. And of course, it's a day off. But how many really know what Memorial Day is all about? For some Americans, it's something different entirely. Memorial Day, yes, it's a day of celebration in America, but along with that, it's a day of remembrance. It's a day that we solemnly remember those who gave their lives while in service to this country. I think that's very important to understand. Memorial Day is a time of remembrance and gratitude. And also, Memorial Day is not about veterans. We have Veterans Day for that. Memorial Day is about those who never really had the chance to become veterans because they died before they had that chance. And I think it's very important to remember that because there are some out there that are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice so that we as Americans in general can experience and enjoy all the freedoms that we have. And I think that today, especially with this generation, and all generations really, I'd like people to have a deeper understanding of what this holiday really is for. So keep in mind, when we're looking at Memorial Day and we see the flags flying, the barbecues, everybody at the picnic or in the backyard barbecue, things happening, family members getting together, just remember and me being a veteran, it's not about me. It's not about the veteran. It is about those who gave their lives as sacrifice and support for this country and everything that it means. For many people, if you've never served in the military or you've never spent a long time overseas, you may not quite understand what these freedoms are that I'm talking about, because we live in a global society nowadays. And it seems like everywhere you go, you can go to India or Pakistan or Africa, and everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's got a quote unquote iPhone. But there is a freedom in the United States that other countries do not necessarily have. Our amount of free choice exceeds any other country. And that is something uniquely American. I don't want to become over patriotic and become preachy about this, but I think that's important to know. It's also important to know that these freedoms that we experience, there are those that paid the ultimate price for us to have these freedoms. And when I say the ultimate price, I mean they gave up their life so that you can have this wonderful life. And keep in mind, these aren't people that set out to become heroes. They didn't. It wasn't in their mind to say, I'm going to sacrifice my life for the betterment of humanity. For the most part, these people were people like you and me, people who grew up poor. It wasn't the rich people that went to war. It's the poor people that go to war. It's the poor people that fight our battles. It's the working man, the people who don't have any other means. So just keep that in mind when you're celebrating. It's not about working against or fighting against the, whatever tyranny you might think is happening nowadays. But they were soldiers because that became their lifestyle, because they didn't have a choice of much else. There are many, myself among them, where their choice was, take your chances, try to get a job in construction, or go in the military. But at some point, everyone that's there realized that part of that lifestyle that we are allowed to live is the promise that if needed, we will give up our entire life. Very important to know. So once again, keep in mind the people I'm talking about, and my ask here is we are not trying to celebrate warmongers and generals and those rich folks that came in to go to the military of some kind or another. We're celebrating the everyday person who went above and beyond, who in their performance of their duties made that ultimate sacrifice. And because of that, there's always going to be some good. But unfortunately, there are families out there that feel this pain and suffering every day. Very important to memorialize them. So along those lines, I talked about, it's not the rich people that go in. Let me express my personal story. Then this is just to put everything into context. I didn't go into the military out of a sense of duty to country. No, I was 17 years old when I started looking into this. I didn't know any better. I just wanted a job. I did not understand those. And those are the people that are serving in the military, and those are the ones that gave their lives for this country. So it's not those people that set out to become heroes. They became heroes because of their training and because of what they were willing to sacrifice, up to and including their own lives. So in my particular case, I could not have been happier. At that point in time, I got to the point where I was living in my car, mostly due to my own actions. And there came a point where I just thought I can't do it anymore, and I couldn't seem to get ahead. So for me, the military was the right choice. Now, very fortunately for me, I was able to do 22 years in the military and not have to make that ultimate sacrifice. But there's many people who did, and many people that I know that had to make that sacrifice. So I'm here not to talk about my own story. I'm here to try to just put that into context to say, this is what it means. So for those of you who are young, and I understand, I know that not everybody understands this way of life and what sacrifice is. For you, sacrificing is giving up a soda or something. And I don't blame you for that. It's hard to understand the context of what people have to do. And unfortunately, I think there are many names that are going to go completely unrecognized and unnoticed. The heroes out there, the people who died for the cause of freedom and this country, which is uniquely American, by the way, they didn't die planning to be a hero. They died and became heroes through their sacrifice, through their death. And for that, I think it's very important to just take a moment and memorialize them. Unfortunately, everyday Americans, when they hear names like David Carter, Brian Nichols, Patrick Hamburger, Alexander Bennett, Spencer Duncan, to most people, those names mean nothing. They don't know these people. But those were the 5 crew members that were aboard a CH-47D model in Afghanistan, some miles outside of Kabul, and got shot down from an RPG. They were among 33 other passengers that also went down in a fiery crash in that helicopter. And did they know that that morning when they woke up that they were going to sacrifice their lives for the better of this nation? They had no idea. All they knew was, I have a mission to do. I've been trained to do that mission. Their mission was to go out and reinforce a force that was already in this small village, and they were trying to bring in reinforcements. They had a good plan. Unfortunately, the plan fell through, and that helicopter went down. And as many of you may know that we're in the military, if not, you wouldn't know this, but RPGs are a low-tech device, and if you're flying low and slow, you don't have much of a choice. You don't have any help. But I just want to express that, those names are forgotten to most Americans. I remember them because I spent so much time in this community. But even I have to look them up on my notes. That helicopter, its tail number was 8424175. And many of you will probably recognize it now if I tell you that the call sign of that helicopter was Extortion 17. That happened to be the largest amount of casualties in a single helicopter crash in during the entire Afghanistan campaign. And again, all politics aside, those guys went out there that day, and they weren't fighting as Democrats or Republicans. They weren't fighting as as independents or any other political party. They were fighting for humanity, and they were fighting for their loved ones, and they were fighting for other Americans. And they were willing to do their job. And unfortunately, not all made it. And it's very strange because this also impacts veterans who did make it, because then you're left wondering, well, why wasn't I not taken out? And I know that sounds strange to say, but it's important to realize that. So especially those of you who do not have that experience, very important to understand when you see a veteran, pay attention to them. They may not be letting you be aware of what they're really feeling inside, but deep down inside, they have to wonder, as people like me who have been in for many, many years, you can't help but wonder, how did I make it this long? Why was I not taken out? By what grace was I given? So that's very important to understand as well. And of course, on that mission, the soldiers and sailors, they remain mostly nameless, forgotten to time. But I would like, if nothing else, take this moment and give yourself a moment or two just to remember somebody, remember those names. So how did Memorial Day come about? How did this whole thing happen? Well, it is an entirely American holiday. It actually started, they believe anyway, in 1865 at the end of the Civil War. And there's numerous stories about this, and who knows for sure exactly what happened, but over time it became a thing that people would do on an annual basis. They would go and decorate the graves of those who died in the Civil War, Union or Confederate, didn't matter which one, but it became known as Decoration Day. But it was not a holiday. It was an unofficial thing all the way up to 1971 when it finally became a federal holiday. And that's when it became Memorial Day. So, interesting fact, it started out as Decoration Day, where most of these soldiers that were being decorated, they were being decorated because many of them did not even have tombstones. In one particular story, there's a story out there that says that a group of people went in and they had to exhume all the bodies because they were buried in a mass grave. And they tried to exhume them, they tried to identify them, and then they had to rebury them in a more dignified manner. So just remember, while you're out there celebrating, that freedom isn't free. I know you've heard that term before, but for all of your freedoms, somebody had to pay something for that. And I don't expect everybody to go out there and spend their whole entire lives walking around on their knees being grateful about somebody else's sacrifice. But on this one day, I do ask that you give a moment. So what can you do? What can you do on this day to help memorialize those that gave everything? Well, there's a couple of different ways you can help support or honor the fallen. One, if you have a chance, attend some local Memorial Day ceremony. Now, sometimes those are hard to find, but it's something that can be done. Maybe visit a veteran cemetery if there's one nearby. Maybe pay your respects. You don't have to bring flowers. Just walk through and read a name or two, and then deep down understand that that person gave their all for their country. Maybe listen and learn the story of a fallen soldier. If you talk to many soldiers nowadays, they have a story of someone they know that didn't make it. So I'm sure that if you ask, someone out there will tell that story. And some of these stories can be very insightful. And last but not least, remember, you don't have to be a soldier to honor a soldier, or an airman, or Marine, or sailor. You don't have to be in the service in order to just show some respect to the sacrifice of some. And let me end with this. There is a Kohima epitaph that was presented on a cemetery, and they called this the Kohima. It was a place in India During World War II, the British went in there and they fought very hard. And there's a cemetery there, kind of like at Normandy, where we have a cemetery for all the people who died in that area. Well, there's an epitaph on one of the headstones, and it reads thusly. It says, "When you go home, tell them of us, and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today." So think about that for a moment. That soldier was willing to give their today for your tomorrow. So hopefully this video and this day finds you well. I know this is kind of out of the ordinary for me. I normally like to post on retirement stuff, but I just thought it to be very important to post this for this particular day. So that being said, get out there and enjoy yourself. Enjoy the freedoms that you have that were paid in blood for you. And until next time, see ya.